said to me before we got on here of the fact that you felt a nerve and a difference change when the cameras got rolling. Talk to me about the fear or the change of aspect that comes the minute I just press that button there. I actually felt, the minute I did it, I felt a little change of energy. So talk to me about that.
It's the thought of the perceived perception of yourself, and saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, and ultimately criticising yourself for the way that other people look at you.
Yeah.
I think
you're put on, it's on the record all of a sudden. Most of the time you'll get away with saying something stupid or maybe slightly off colour, and no one's going to hold you accountable for it because it will be forgotten. As you say, the minute you get on a camera, all of a sudden you feel like, it's just a totally different dynamic. It's like speaking in front of a crowd. Essentially it is the same thing. It's the modern day version of having a real blunder on a stage.
Yeah, I find it, well, it's anxiety levels of anything. People get anxiety for different things, but mine is very simple. It's the hot flashes, it's the anxiety of myself and looking at myself and thinking, oh, I didn't like that, or I didn't like that. Maybe it is a photographer's eye that I have, that I don't like looking at myself and going, that's a really good photo, because there's always something wrong with it. And I think that goes to a lot of people, in the sense of, you get on camera and any selfies this day and age is very based around kind of photographs, selfies and Instagram and whatnot. I think that whole anxiety of looking at yourself and going, oh, I don't like that, I don't like that, or I should have done that better, or I should have done that better. I find it incredibly, I don't want to say self-conscious, but it's the right word.
How does that relate to your day-to-day existence, though? Because to me, you always come across as someone that's particularly comfortable around people. You don't seem to have a great deal of issue holding conversation.
No, I don't think it's well, I think you just know that, in a sense, you are, what's the word? You are day-to-day, you're not on camera, you're not on film, you're not being recorded, even though I want to say 99% of the times you probably are somewhere.
Yeah. If you're in China, 100% of the time.
Exactly. So I think for me it's very much, you might relate to this, is it's a mask to a certain degree.
In what sense?
Well, if I got my way, and in my current situation, I would very much not associate with the world at all, because more and more this day and age we live in is criticising everything that anyone ever does. And the point you made earlier, in the sense of, you're very happy to talk to people, you're very open, you're very easy to chat to. The constant ADHD mind that I have is looking at the worst case scenario of anything you say can be used against you in a court of law.
Yes, yeah. I do think as well, just sorry to cut you off, I think we live in two different worlds now. I think you've got the world that is in front of you, the one that you walk around on a day-to-day, and you've got the one that you sit down and look into a screen to find. I think the minute 100%. You put people on the other side of a screen, I've noticed it already. I've got people throwing slanderous comments at me for no particular reason at all. That being said, it's never for any reason. People seem to just denigrate, and there was a fantastic saying on this, that social media turns people that aren't psychopaths into psychopaths. And I think it's true. I think all of a sudden you put someone behind a screen, and that lack of responsibility, you see it in crowds. There's a book by Douglas Murray called The Madness of Crowds, which speaks to this. The minute you put someone in a position where they don't have to take authority for what it is that they're doing, they turn into bastards. And I think that sort of 100%. The inverse of that is the anxiety that you will feel when you get on a camera. If you think, oh, but even if I don't do anything wrong, I could come on here and be the second coming of Gandhi, and people would still have something bad to say. They did have something bad to say about Gandhi.
No one's perfect. Thought process that I just had, and it's totally irrelevant to this conversation. but it's the first time that I've looked someone in the eyes and not been awkward about it.
What, just now?
Just now. I've been looking at you and I've just been thinking to myself, sorry for swearing, but oh shit.
Yeah, you can swear.
I can actually look it in the eye and not feel like I'm being pressured, being told off, because throughout my whole life, and again, it comes down to the neurodivergent that I have, the ADHD, the slight autism, of looking someone in the eye and just being told off constantly for going, like teachers at school going, looking me in the eye and telling me you're sorry. And I think it's the first time I've ever had it now, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Of chatting to someone and just being present in the moment, and there's no pressure for anything. It's just a conversation between two people that we're exploring and seeing where it goes.
Exactly, and that's it. I find it on this space, and doing this has a very strange atmosphere to it in a good way. It's sort of anyone who comes in here, even like you, I'm perfectly comfortable with you beforehand because I know that I'm putting this out. This has got my name attached to it. I've got anxiety of, I hope I perform. I hope I stumble my words. I hope I just do well. I hope it's good. Even with the knowing that I think I'm perfectly comfortable around Mick, I don't have any trouble having that conversation. But the minute this dynamic's in play, that changes. That being said, what you've touched on there, I also find this is a very simple way of connecting with someone. Yeah. I find when someone sits in that chair, it seems as though it's far easier to just burrow into some things. I think it's because the aspect that we're going into is sort of that in particular, whereas normal conversations you'll go off on whatever riff, whatever tangent. This is sort of more directed in that direction. But you would think that, given the fact, as we've touched on there, you're on a camera and thus there's that added pressure, there's those uncertainties, it would be much harder for you to get in there. But I find people come in here and they'll be worried about starting, and all of a sudden you're 10 minutes in and it's no question, it's no issues.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, like I know the camera's there, I know it's on, and there is a constant little voice in my head. Sounds worse than it is, but you know what I mean.
No,
it's that voice that's in your head that goes, don't make a mistake, don't do this, don't do that, don't have an outburst, don't go on a tangent about life, the universe and everything else.
Well, you can do that at some point if you'd like.
But we
endorse that.
It's also, for me, when you asked me, and I remember saying to you, yeah, I would love to do that, because it was only a couple of hours before that you told me that you were doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, I'm intrigued by this, because it's a big fear of mine, and the easiest way to explain it is, throughout my life, family photos, I just hated them.
Yes.
And it wasn't so much because it was only just me and the camera, it was 20, 25 of us. But at the same time I looked at the photograph and it wasn't only just me, it was, I'm in that photograph, I don't like the way that I'm messing about as a kid, and that's come through my life, and now I'm 30, to the point where I look at the photograph as a whole and criticise different aspects of it, being the colour ratio, being the sun, being the light going on to the photograph, and just little things like that. But also kind of volunteering myself, because I knew I had anxiety for it, to turn around and go, actually, I can take the photograph, I can be on the other side of the camera. And subsequently, now I do event photography, I do wildlife photography, and I do landscape, and I love it because I'm on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, you're back into your realm of comfort with that.
Yeah, 100%.
It's interesting though that I actually made a video talking about this yesterday, of that fear of failure. It's such a common thing that people cannot start something or will refuse to put themselves out because they're scared of failing. It's such a tremendous issue for people that they feel as though they have to be spot on 100% of the time. And when you think about it, if I blunder my words, or you make a mistake, or we go off topic at one point, what does it matter? We're sat in front of two microphones having a conversation, hoping that other people enjoy listening to it. It's no more than that. And I think it's I think it's the perennial issue of the world now of thinking that there's an issue where there's not. I think a lot of people put themselves in positions where they are certain that if they get this wrong, that's the end. It's a catastrophe. And it's not the case. Most of the time, even on a camera, when you'll get someone on the other side calling you various names, it doesn't matter. They're words in to avoid, and it doesn't mean anything. I think failure is one of the things that we should move toward, and unfortunately, it's denigrated and spoken of in such a way that we do our best to avoid it. It's almost as though avoid failure at all costs, avoid mistakes at all costs. No, it's not the case. And in an inverted sense, if you and I sit on these microphones and think, oh, make sure you don't make a mistake, make sure you say what you want to say, you're gonna fuck it up. You will. I've noticed it with myself. The first guest that I had on, I noticed that there would be trains of thought where I'd be going, and I would be moving through what the context of what I was speaking on, and I would have this sort of subliminal message going on at the same time saying, just make sure you stay on track, and then I would go off track. And it's like, if you just fucking stayed over there and didn't get in my head and just let me move through this conversation, the very concern that you're doing your best to avoid, as in that voice in my head, wouldn't happen. I think we stand in our own way so often, and I think social media is a massive part of this. As we touched on there, I think that constant feeling of being watched, of feeling as though every mistake you make will be pounced on and you will be ridiculed for it. I think that is a large part of where this comes from.
Yeah, I think I've got kind of 2 points in, and I can't speak about anyone else, but I can speak about myself and my experiences. 5 minutes before we sat here having this conversation, I said about the dog being a very simple life and being the happiest. Like, your dog is very smiley, very happy, very kind of in the moment. Pardon?
Brain dead.
Brain dead.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah. But you kind of said, look, it's the closest to, in a sense, a Buddhist monk, because they are so in the moment. They're not worrying. And my comment to that was, we're worrying about things that are pointless, to say the least. Like, we hear it all the time. Stop worrying about the 99% of things, because they won't happen. I got told, and it's kind of tangent a little bit, but I got told that I had to move out of my house and I needed to move on. And for me, I hate change. And that also goes into the self-reflective study of yourself and how you perceive yourself, and having that comfort zone. Talking about camera shy as such, it's the same thing to me. Well, it's up for debate, of course, but for me, that camera shy is very closely related to change and not liking the change, because your comfort is that routine, that kind of get up in the morning, go to work, come back from work, do nothing, chill. And if that's having a drink, that's your thing, that works. If it's having a smoke, that's how it works for you. So that, to me, I look at a dog and I go, oh, I love animals, because they are such in the moment.
Yes.
That they don't care about what happens tomorrow.
No, they're not remotely concerned about what happens tomorrow. No. They are, dogs, like children, live exactly where they are. It is, if you're upset now or you're distressed now, then you're distressed now. If in 5 minutes time all is well and you've got your ice cream, then all is well and you've got your ice cream. There's no concern. Humans...
you offering me an ice cream at the end of this?
I shall do afterwards. Yeah, I shall get one afterwards. No, I find it with myself all the time. I will recognise that I am where I want to be. I will be with someone that I like to be with, or I'll be doing something that I want to do, or I'll be in a positive mental frame. And all of a sudden I'll have this voice that will come along and sort of say, oh, well, make sure you make the most of it, because someday you're not going to have it. Well, I have it now, so why are you getting in the way? You know, we do this all the time, where the very thing we try not to do, we do. And we do it worse because we're so focused on it. Now, it's tremendously difficult for us to move out of this frame of mind, because it seems to just be essentially the way man is made. I spoke on this. It makes more sense for mankind to be pessimistic or apprehensive than forthgoing. Because if you take it back to our most primitive of roots, if you walk towards a lion and think, I don't know what that lion is, I'm going to go and walk towards it, your genes aren't going to be propagated because you will be in the lion. If you look at the lion and go, oh, I don't know what that is, I'm going to walk the other way, you'll be alright. It makes sense for you to be apprehensive towards things, and I think it comes with the territory now of the way that we are constantly concerned about things, that essentially that as an inbuilt system makes sense, but when you add it to the exacerbation that is social media, you're not getting the authentic concern that once served you well. At one point in time, it was good to be worried about where you were.
100%.
But when that was the case, you also weren't worried when you didn't need to be, because there wasn't that effect. We were, in our more primal instinct, when we were the hunter-gatherer, we were much closer to the monk. We would enjoy the time that was enjoyable, and we'd be concerned when we needed to be. Now, we mix the two up. We're concerned when we don't need to be, and the rest of the time we're panicked.
I think following that is we're concerned about the future, and that's the 99 thoughts that we have. But we always say to ourselves, live in the moment, live in the moment. But inadvertently, we're looking at the future and go, what do I need to do to get to that future? Yes, of course you need to have that, but you also need to live your life. And your life is only now. It's not the past and it's not the present. Future, yeah. Sorry, present, yeah. There's the fuck up that you were talking about. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's it.
And redirecting it back into my fear of being on camera, I didn't even realise that I fucked up in that moment until you pointed it out. But is that a good thing or a bad thing? People know what I'm trying to say, the ones who watch this podcast. But they know what I'm trying to say, but inadvertently I made a mistake, and now I'm thinking to myself, why did you make a mistake? Why did you make a mistake? Like, that anxiety of kind of, oh shit, what do I do now? Is, as I'm trying to do now, is just talk about it and own it to a certain degree.
Yes.
I think, look, everyone's human and everyone makes mistakes, minor or massive. Like, we could do another podcast on my life story, present, past and future. And in itself, that could be massive.
Look out for part 2.
Yeah, look out for part 2. But that fear of actually being in yourself and going, okay, I understand that I do have, and I hate the word fear, and I'm not going into it, and I don't want to go into it, but the whole philosophy on cheating, I have a very different aspect to it, because everyone has that kind of, if you break a pencil when you're at school, or you make a mistake on a test, that is a mistake, yes, but you have to learn from that mistake to not do it again. Same issue with being on camera. You make a mistake on camera, I go, oh yes, I made a mistake, but I should just let it go. As you said, don't think too much about the mistake and what you could say in the future that is a mistake, but actually go, okay, live in the moment, enjoy it, and in a sense cherish it.
Yeah.
Like,
own your mistakes.
Yeah, own your mistakes.
I think when we make mistakes, we also you want to go this one, by the way. I made a mistake. I made a mistake there. It's this one. If you want to drink, let me know. I'll press that. I think it's when we make mistakes, we seem to think it is the be all and end all of our person. We are no longer. We take a mistake and we assume that we assume we did it on purpose, and 2, we assume that it stands for our character at large. We think, oh, I've made this mistake being clumsy, I'm obviously a clumsy person. No, you're not. You did one thing that was accidental, and that's the critical part of this, is we assume when we make a mistake that it's our fault, that we meant to do it. No, you didn't. It's a mistake. you didn't mean to say the thing to make one very minor error in your speech. It was the enthusiasm of the conversation, which in itself is a brilliant thing, and that has taken you slightly away from where you were going. But as you say, everyone knew what you were trying to say. I knew what you were trying to say, and when we reframe our mistakes as not thinking I meant to make that mistake, because I think that's where it underlies. If we take such responsibility for our mistakes, now of course if you make a particular costly error, you do have to be accountable for it, but you don't have to say, why did I do that? Well, the reason you did that is because you're human, and it happens.
Controversy to a certain degree, but okay, you have to be accountable for your mistakes, and as I said, we could delve into my topics, let's put it that way, of my life. At the same point is making a mistake and being accountable. I totally agree with that. If you do make a mistake, you need to be accountable. But should that accountability be severe if it's a genuine mistake, or should it be punishable? And of course, this is not the case, but should it be punishable by death? Severe punishment for a mistake that you are unaware of.
Well, let's smooth that round the edges as to not go a bit off topic. What do you mean there?
So what I mean is, for example, if I've gone shopping, not that I've ever done this in my life, and I promise you that, but I've gone shopping, I've gone to Sainsbury's or Lidl or whatever shop, I've packed all my bag, done all that, went to self-checkout or thingy, walked out the shop and realised that I'd just put something, because it didn't fit in my basket, in my pocket. I have stolen that product. The other option is, which I found out recently, is if you go into a supermarket and you have diabetes or whatever, you have low blood sugars, you eat something in the shop before paying for it, it is stolen goods. But stealing to that degree, you are still stealing. Yes, I understand that, and there should be consequences for your own actions, but it's inadvertently not trying to do it for something bad.
Yeah.
Because if you've got diabetes, you need blood, sweets or whatever, just to bring up your blood sugars. It's actually, you're doing it for a good thing, because the actual other aspect of it is far worse. Same with me. So my example is kind of, yes, there's consequences to actions, but if I'm not trying to, what's the word, do the mistake on purpose and do a criminal mistake, I'm actually just making a genuine human error. Should I be punished for it as a criminal instead of a mistake? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that if Mr. Trump has, since starting this recording, passed a ruling that means if you put a can of aerosol in your pocket and forget about it, or you eat a lint too early, that it's punishable by death, I'm further against him than I once was. I think what you're getting at, though, is the nuances of errors. And I think as well, there's slightly different topic there of, one of those would be intentional, which removes it from being a mistake. Now, I know what you're saying, that if you do the same thing without the intention, should you be punished the same way? No, you shouldn't. It's a thousand shades of grey when it comes to our actions. If you do one thing that is hurtful to someone on purpose, that is drastically different to if you do the same thing by accident. Or if you do the same thing, even if you do the same thing with intent, but you're having a psychotic break. It's, there are so many different variations of this. I do think, just to bring it back to closer towards the mistakes thing, I don't know, I think we spend so much of our time in this constant state of panic that if we make a mistake, we can't make up for it. We can't apologise, or
especially on camera.
Yeah, particularly on camera.
You only get one take.
Yeah, camera comes out of it, and that does bring you concern. You might fall off of your train of thought, and all of a sudden you think, oh fuck, I can't get that time back. And that's the perennial concern we have with mistakes, and it's why we're so critical of ourselves, because we know, in intrinsically we have such a value placed on our time that we know that any time we spend not doing what we'd like to do, we get worried about it. We don't like to do that. And if you say something that you think stands parallel to your character, you don't like that because you think, oh, but I didn't mean to say that, or I didn't mean to do that. You know, I didn't. You might walk across the street and not thank the car that's let you go, and you were just too engrossed in you had a doctor's appointment to go to or something, and then you think, oh shit, that now all of a sudden that is seemingly who I am. And what that touches on is, I find this with strangers all the time. We can get very irritated when, for instance, if you let someone go and they don't say thank you to you. Our knee-jerk reaction, particularly as the English, is what a fucking knob. You know, you are immediately irritated, and everyone does this. Now, we don't have a great deal of room to speak on. Maybe that person is in a terrible rush. Maybe their wife is in labour at the moment, or maybe they're not having a good day, or maybe they didn't see you, or maybe they have their earphones in. We so consistently put the mistakes of others down to ill intent. Quite a lot of the time, that's not the case. And there's an interesting sort of what would the motif, I suppose, I don't really know, called Hanlon's razor, which speaks of never attribute to malice what can be accurately explained by stupidity, or in this instance, ignorance.
Yeah. I will go off topic here because it's relevant to precisely what you said. I was driving here today. There was an elderly man driving an X5, and from Pembury Road to actually Teeston, ironically, he was driving. I was following him. At Pembury Crossing, he went in the wrong lane and then inadvertently darted in front of all the cars, basically going in the middle of the junction where he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
He could have turned right where he made the mistake, done the right thing, and of course I then went, oh, I wonder if he's just queue jumping. Carried on going, he was swerving. I was like, oh, he shouldn't be driving. If it was 10 o'clock at night, you'd be like, he's drunk and disorderly. If not now, and I kept on following him at a distance, just, I wouldn't say irritated about his driving manner or queue jumping, because I just go, oh, he ain't going to hear me, and actually it makes no difference to the world. I can have road rage as much as I want.
You're screaming into the void.
Yeah. If that makes you feel better, go right ahead, but don't do it to the point where you're going to get out of your car, you want to start a fight with someone. Anyway, moving on. I thought, because I said to myself, I'm driving to a place that I'm going to be on camera. There's a fear to myself. And I thought to myself, in that moment, I went, maybe that's his fear. He doesn't like driving.
Possibly.
He might be driving for 60 odd years. I don't know how old he is, but he might have been driving for 60 odd years, and he's still, even after 60 years, have a fear of driving for one reason or another.
Or he might be aware of his age.
Or he might be aware of his age.
On that front.
He was by himself in the car, and I thought, and this is speculating, 100%, his wife might have passed away, or just not in the car, and she might have driven him everywhere. And there's a very rare occasion that he has to drive himself. And at those 60 years that he's had a license, he might have driven 5 times. I can't judge him for that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I can't have a go at him for making a mistake. Inadvertently, my first initial reaction is a hope that he gets to where he's going safe, and I hope that nothing bad happens. Because if it does, that might be the end of his freedom, because he won't be able to drive again, he might end up in hospital, or worse, he might injure himself or someone else.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to make that point in that moment when you said it, is that fear and the understanding of other people and the mistakes that they've made that shouldn't be prosecuted to a certain degree. Persecuted. Excuse the language, but you know what I meant. And even now, on camera for me, I'm like, I am nervous. I'm much better than I was right at the beginning. And you said 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, you can start relaxing, because you realise that it's not what your brain keeps telling you that it is, or that will be. But yeah, I find it very struggle. This is why I've got one headphone off, because I'm always listening to everything else outside of what's in the headphones. I use music a hell of a lot. to focus my brain and relax myself. And drum and bass today, but tomorrow it could be Led Zeppelin, the day after could be Sting, it could be something current, it could be something classic. It all depends on my mood, and it all depends on how I perceive myself in that moment. Being on camera, I think this day and age we are all on camera inadvertently through work, because cameras are based around everything around work, because they think, oh, you might steal something out of this cash till, you might do something bad, you might make a mistake, and we all just get on with it, because even though the camera's there, we know it's there, we get on with it, and actually sometimes we say stuff that we otherwise shouldn't say. And if the boss is, what's a better word, knob, acquired taste, yes, he might be looking at that, and then he sees that you're speaking bad of him or the business or whatever, and he might not fire you, but he will treat you in a different light. And you think, well, everyone has that two faces. Everyone has, and it's the same with cameras. Some people might see this podcast and go, I totally relate to that with cameras. I totally relate to that self-image. Other people go, what the hell are you talking about?
I would argue that most people will understand where we're going here. And I would say, on a broader scale, it's the interconnected nature of the world.
When I say two faces, let's say you and I go to the pub later.
Yeah.
We talk about this, we meet someone, just one person. They might agree with us and they're like, oh, I really loved your podcast. I really relate to that. If they were with a group of 10 friends, they might not say it for the fear of their friends having a laugh or having a go at them for believing in someone else and believing that they are not perfect and they actually have a fear of something specific. One of my biggest fears, and it goes with the cameras as well, and I said about two faces, is change of people's perception of you. I always try and do the best for myself, but also for others, and help others where I can. But you see these friends that you think they're there for life, who walk out of your life with no explanation, and kind of goes with the same with the cameras, is you are in fear of that, where you could just turn around and go, well, actually, it's their life to live. And if it is their life to live, then why should I judge them for moving on? And why can't I move on?
It begs the question. I have to say, I've found myself a number of times in the last year being hurt by people and taking that as, why would you try and hurt me? Now, in actual fact, I think a lot of the time, almost invariably in fact, people don't try to hurt someone. It's not intentional, it's a byproduct. And what you're touching on there is essentially the same thing of the difference between malice intent and honest effort to just do what you think is right. I think a lot of people now, I mean, for one, this is something that has been a concern of mine many a time, is people come across as hurtful, but they're not being hurtful, they're just not thinking. A lot of people do that. A lot of people say things or do things that are hurtful, but they're not trying to be hurtful. I think the broader point here is it's important to distinguish the difference between someone who is genuinely out to hurt, or someone who makes a mistake, or someone who is having an off day, or so. I think we're so focused on bringing people down, particularly in England. I think there's this sort of thing that you can't make a mistake, you can't show a significant amount of character. And what you touched on there about someone voicing their opinion, people, particularly young Englishmen, get the piss taken out of them for just being who they are. And I think to bring it to a head and make an important point of it, if you refuse to let someone express their colours and be who they actually are because of some stigmatizing or social constraint, you will ruin the world. If you don't allow people to express themselves as who they are, you won't have a world that is full of the dynamic and the creativity that we want to be a part of. I think I know people don't, as I say, this is a sort of inverted topic, because I think with social media, I don't actually think people are intending to hurt people in the same way. I think when someone puts a shitty comment online, I don't think the thought process in their head is, I'm going to send this message because I want to make that person upset. I think it's entertainment.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think it's the same way. People forever reference, oh, you wouldn't say that in person. No, you wouldn't, because it's not the same thing. You wouldn't go up to someone in the street and say, oh, I fucking hate your videos, I think they're stupid. You wouldn't do it. You
It's
would
just
do it
socially
online.
unacceptable.
It is socially unacceptable, and this is on a different point of that sort of the psychopathic element that seems to become prominent on social media.
Well, you've got a screen to hide behind.
It is that hiding, as we touched on before, that lack of or that addition of anonymity and that lack of responsibility creates real carnage. But I do think I think we get the wrong gist or the wrong end of the stick a lot of the time with people. Where I would argue that 90% of people are just trying to navigate a life that you don't have a rule book for. You don't have a handbook when you're born of, do this will make you happy. Don't do that because people don't like that. You're navigating all the time. People, and this is why I think it's so important that we embrace mistakes and that we learn how to integrate our errors. Is you don't know how to live life. No one knows how to live life. We've come to quite a good understanding of, you know, do this because this makes you happy. Don't do that because this doesn't make you happy. But we're still learning. You know, if we knew definitively not to do drugs, well, why do people do drugs then? Or why do some people enjoy that and genuinely, I can testify to this, take a value from that in some instances, and why do others ruin their lives? The world is totally nuanced, and as a result of that, people will make mistakes, because you can, as we touched on before, you can do the exact same thing for one reason and another, and they be two cataclysmically different results.
Talking about drugs, drugs from a perspective of business is one of the biggest businesses in the world.
Are you referencing the pharmaceutical industry?
Pharmaceutical, yes.
Yes.
100%. And you think, okay, so that's fine. But you look at other drugs that are not making the pharmaceutical companies, and I am speaking out my mind, I'm not speaking out of malice to anyone, but I am speaking to the point where, for example, THC, weed, cocaine, whatever you want to go through, oh, they're illegal, you can't have them, you can't take them, they're bad for you, they do this, they ruin people's lives. But day-to-day life, and I'm in that situation now where I've had seizures. They don't know exactly what it is, they think it's stress related, and they're giving me these pills to take. I don't know what's in them.
No.
I'm trusting the doctor who gave it to me that it is good and it's going to help me. But the same effect, and I know for my personal life, is actually a drug that really does help me, I'm not allowed to have.
Cannabis.
Yeah, cannabis. And don't get me wrong, in the past, that when I was in South Africa, it's legalised. And you can walk down the street and be absolutely fine with it. And that after, and this is another tangent, in 2015 I was diagnosed with cancer, and chemo destroyed everything about my life possible. But the one thing it massively destroyed is my realisation that people have this association with cancer to death.
Yes.
And I was doing probably up to 35, 45 tablets in the morning, afternoon, evening, every time. So 45 morning, 45 afternoon, 45 evening. And people did not want to talk to me about it. And when you meet someone in the street, hey, how are you, how's life? No questions were asked, because it was that fear of, how do I ask someone who's got cancer at the age of 20? Going into now, it's kind of, I've got this condition, I don't know what it is, and I'm trusting the doctors to figure that out for me. And I also know that something that helps with the anxiety, with being on camera, being in the present moment, for my mind, my body, and everything else is weed. And it's stigmatized that you can't have it. It's bad for you. It's bad for you. I'm not saying I have it every single day and I'm a weedaholic, or whatever you want to call it. I've got no interest in alcohol. Yeah. I'm not a big. I just no interest.
Yeah.
Also bloody expensive, but that's a different topic. So, if we did this same conversation, and I'd be curious to see this, not for any other reason than legitimate reasons, to have the same conversation, and if I'm allowed to say it, being stoned, I would like to see the difference in the anxiety here, the thought process of that camera over there, and also, it's not just the camera, it's the microphones.
Yeah.
And you're not having that same intimate conversation of just being on the street.
Yes.
To sitting in a room, having cameras, having microphones kind of in your face, to the point where I go, should I say that? Should I not? Because otherwise, you know me, you've known me for close to enough a year, where I happy just to talk about stuff.
You have a freedom of flow.
Yeah. But as soon as that moment comes into the effect where you have the thought of people listening and the thought of people judging you, you then start tensing up and your autoimmune system starts going, okay, now what do I have to do? Okay, I'm going to heat your body up. I'm going to make your anxiety go through the roof.
And make your heart beat a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Eyes dilate.
Yeah.
Pupils dilate.
And other things do that as well. But
No, you touch it correctly though. It's that I think it's the subliminal feeling of danger. You know, we have to remember that we are an animal, and as a result, when we perceive a foreign circumstance, we don't know what is in front of us, and we can objectively look and go, I'm only sat in front of a microphone, but there's 100 different things that means. As you say, it means that someone might be listening. It means that the thing you're worried about, maybe I had not so long ago, I was worried about a sort of a developing speech impediment. I think it's an anxiety sort of thing, but I don't actually know, maybe not. And I was, I come on the camera and I'm worried that might come out, or you have all these different things that come up, all under the spotlight that is a societal gaze.
Well, between 18 and 35 in men, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything like that, but between 18 and 35 men have this persona that they have to be a certain individual.
What is that certain individual?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think anyone knows. Personally, I don't think anyone knows. It's like, well, you have to look trim, you have to look good, you have to dress well, you have to have this effect on women that you are always giving, you're always opening a door for them, you're always being the perfect person as such towards...
All the while threading the needle that is...
Because if you say the wrong thing, or you touch that individual in a malice way that they could perceive as...
perceived malice.
Yeah.
The difference between flirting.
Yeah. And I can tell you now, I'm single. And I am single for a very simple reason that since 2015 to the present day, I have been dating two women, and they've both ended, one through COVID and two through my situation that I'm going through. And it wasn't anything to do with my situation, it was what people were saying to her about me. And that gossip I hate with a passion, and I know that perfectly well as a man I can't do anything about it.
Yes,
because
particularly as a man.
Yeah, particularly as a man, I can't do anything about it because, and it goes back to the camera, is someone might film it, someone might have some evidence that I've done something. Don't get me wrong, I would love to the people who, who have shot me in the foot, for example, to go and just go, have some of your own medicine. This is a world that both men and women are equal, and I want to be able to hit you like you've just hit me slap bang in the foot with a gun. But I can't.
Just to polish that there, you mean psychologically, not literally?
Both, actually. I more psychologically, of course, because no one shot me in the foot with a gun, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't feel the same way. Not that I've ever been shot in the foot or anywhere, but it's people will love to judge you, and this goes for social media, very big on social media. People like to judge you for not knowing you, actually. And I hear gossip about my situation and the things that I've had to deal with, of kind of the cancer being one of the biggest ones and the seizures. But it's very hard to hear this as a gossip train that comes back to you and not do something about it. And something that has stuck with me, maybe because I went to a tree hugging school, but something that stuck with me is show them in a positive way that even though they might perceive you as XYZ, show them that actually that's not the case, and that you're going to do something great within your life.
So you're touching on taking that pain and that discomfort that is caused and manipulating that to create a good thing,
Yeah.
to reshape that negativity as something that is positive.
A very good quote is, there's always two sides to a story, because there is. And unless you know the facts, unless you are the individuals involved, why do you have a right to try and ruin someone's life through gossip, through words, through actions, when you have no idea? And it might be a mask for you, kind of what we were talking about in the sense of social media, and I'm going to call them trolls because it's a widely recognised word, of having a computer screen in front of you and saying all these bad things about someone else. When in fact, actually, you have that anxiety, you have that fear of change. People say about the gaming industry and say, I've got a housemate who loves gaming, and I look at him and I go, oh, he's just lazy, he can't bother to get out and do stuff. Actually, if that's his comfort zone, why should I judge him?
Well, see, this is what I mean when I say that something that I've consistently found as I've chosen to pursue various endeavours is that life is very nuanced. There is no such thing as right and wrong in many instances, and this is one of them. On one front, you look and you go, well, in actual fact, we can make a good estimation of the fact that if someone spends 18 hours a day on their game, they might be in their comfort zone, but they're not doing what life is for. There are certain things that I would personally feel are more important in life than other things. Now, don't get me wrong. If you find a comfort in playing games, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think we constantly push this idea of stepping outside of your comfort zone. Well, in some cases, you need to step back into it. I think it's this constant balance between going and pursuing things that are worth pursuing and coming back to base and settling again. You look at it in essentially what the human body is. You go out for the day and you come back to sleep. It's the same thing. You go out to pursue and you come back to rest. Now, obviously, I'm speaking about this in terms of your hobbies. I would argue someone who spends their entire days just playing games isn't pursuing the things that truly make someone happy. They're just...
Controversial, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, you say they're not pursuing something in the sense of not outside of their comfort zone, but I know gaming to a certain degree through my dad being in the gaming industry for God knows how long. But if someone can make millions on gaming because they're very good at it.
Yes, the thing is though, this is circumstantial.
Yeah, 100%.
This is what I mean.
100%.
If someone does it for a job and they're making money off of it, and even then we can start opening questions. This is what I mean when I say there is a real debate to be had on what is good and what is bad when it comes to this, or what is, let me make that a bit clearer, what is progressive and positive and what is regressive. I think life is about longevity in a lot of cases. You can't just do what makes you happy today. I quite often think, I'd like to have a little game on FIFA or whatever, but if I've got stuff I need to do, I can't do it. I have to do something else, because as we went into earlier, for better or worse, the human mind is constantly looking forward. We are inherently incapable of looking at where we are. Because if I sit on a game, I will find many times where, I mean, or my version of this at least, where I might be sat down having a bit of chocolate or something, and one part of me goes, oh, I've been working well this week, or I just want to chill out and have something to eat. But I cannot detach from that part of me that says there is a you tomorrow that needs to deal with whatever you have done today. And on that basis, I think if you expand that further, the person who spends all of their time not doing the right things, or not doing the things that will make you a better person as the years go by, there will come a point where I think it's crunch time and someone thinks, shit, I haven't done anything. I don't have anything to stand for. And I think even when some people are more ambitious than others. And even when someone is not particularly ambitious and are rather content with where they are, I do think there comes a point for everyone where we look back at our lives and think, am I happy with what it is that I've done? And I would argue that anything that isn't an emphatic yes is a no. And I would say there'd be plenty of people, if you just spent your time burrowed away, not going and doing something, not pursuing things, there will come a point when you might not be able to say yes at all. You won't say no because it's too hurtful, but you won't be able to say yes.
I think everyone has that. I look at I'm 30, so 30 years of my life. So I'm sure you and everyone else who would otherwise listen to this is, could I have done more? Yes. Am I happy with what I've done and where I am now? Yes. Am I happy with the mistakes that I've made? Yes.
What do you mean happy with them?
Happy with the mistakes because I've learnt from them.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, you're constantly learning. And that constant learning is not just, I've made a mistake and 2 minutes later I understand the mistake and I move forward.
Yeah.
It takes days, months, years to realise a mistake that you made. Actually, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be here today.
Yes. Everything until this point creates you that stands before us.
Precisely. And that is a realisation to me, goes, oh wow, actually, that cancer brought me to South Africa. South Africa, working there, asking for a pay rise, and them saying, do you have a degree? No. Well, we can't help you. Okay, in that moment, I said to my mum, I'm coming back to the UK and I'm getting myself a degree. This was in June 2017. Uni starts September. I was accepted in July. I went to uni, I did all this, COVID came along, I did my masters, and not going to tangent too much, but that has also brought me to the place I am today.
Yeah.
I have a masters, yes. Am I going into the sports science that I really want to go into? No, because of circumstances, maybe due to mistakes, maybe due to it's not the right career for me. What we may think 10 years ago, in 2015, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a tennis coach, I want to be in that profession because that's the best thing for me. 10 years later, why do I have to do that?
Yeah.
It might change.
Yeah.
And yes, I work in a different hospitality and events and stuff like that. And yes, I love work, but is that a cover for the anxiety of not working or not doing a job that I don't love? And don't get me wrong, sitting here with you today also says to myself, actually, I do enjoy this. I enjoy yes, I enjoy being on camera, but the anxiety, and of course only time will not heal, time will lower the anxiety. It will always be there of being on camera, being on microphone and talking about something that you really are passionate about.
Yes.
Telling your story as such. And if people like it, brilliant. I think there is social media influencers who are out there who have the anxiety of being on camera, but you can see is genuine, trying to make other people's lives better, and not just for the fame, not just for the fortune. They genuinely have been through a very hard time in their life. Quote Robin Williams, I can quote Martin Johnson from rugby, and Nigel Owens, who at 26 went through a very difficult stage in his life, came out of a coma, and his mother said to him, and this has stuck with me since the first time I saw it, his mother said to him, if you do that again, take us with you.
So let's just before you carry on, who is Nigel Owens?
Nigel Owens, well, he's one of the most recognised referees in international rugby. Was one of the most recognised because he's retired now. But he wasn't always that. He was just like you and I. He was just an individual. And he struggled through mental health at the age of 26. And this kind of goes back to the age of 18 to 35 with men. And it might be that. I don't know him personally. But at the age of 26, he decided, I'm done with life. I'm done with who he is in that moment, who he was in that moment. So he tried to commit suicide. And you look at Nigel Owens now, and it's only taken to his late 40s, early 50s to come out of this and actually open up to the world to say, I wasn't always this internationally recognised, one of the best referees in the world of rugby. I was actually this other person. And he said to himself, I don't want to be here. I don't like who I am. And this is my opinion. I'm not saying this is fact, but it was, to me, inspirational where how we've all seen him over the years in rugby to be this world-renowned referee, to then come out when he was retired and say, look, I wasn't that person my whole life. And I took it to the nth degree where I ended up in a coma to realise I actually need to make some changes to myself, and look where he is now in short term. That to me is amazing. I think everyone has good days, bad days, and this goes back to the Nigel Owens of who he is. Is recognising the bad days and going, it's nothing lasts forever. And if you want change, the only person who can do it, and this is what one quote that you said, is you. If you want change in your life, no one else can do it for you. Only you.
You have the power.
You have the power.
It's a very freeing feeling.
Quite.
Yeah. Accidentally. It's a very freeing feeling though when we realise that it is up to us. And Nigel Owens is a fantastic example of that. He could have taken that experience one of two ways. Some people could have failed in their efforts and taken it even worse, of thinking, I can't even do that. I couldn't even do that. Some people would do that. Some people have done that. And others, as he stands to be our example here, take that and think, no, I am the one that has the power to choose how I dictate this. And I think in some sense it's instinctual, it's innate to us that we think, no, I'm not going to be that person. You have that spark in you that all of a sudden goes off where you think, I'm not going to let someone else dictate my life. I'm not going to let my circumstances dictate my life. I think when people realise, and unfortunately a lot of the time this comes as a result of those crunch moments where things go really south and really wrong, I think the goods to come from those moments is people all of a sudden realise that it's up to them. It's up to you what you do with your life. It's up to you how you perceive things. And it is somewhat cliche, but it's true. People have...
There is a massive, and I say massive debate on this. Yes, it is your life. Yes, it's up to you to make the life that you want to make. But also, we do live in a society, and I'm speaking about the UK, where even though we say South Africa has high crime rate, high, what's the word? when you pay people off and stuff. I can't think of the word.
Bribery
And all that. And you think, oh, the UK is a first world country, we'll never have that, we'll never do this. My dealings with the law, and I'm not saying extensive, but my dealings with the law actually has this whole perspective of, well, I said to myself when I was diagnosed with cancer that I would live my life to the moment and enjoy every single moment. But that's also brought me to the place I am now. And that place now, I'm still learning and I'm still going through it. The emotions, the physical emotions, psychological emotions. But I go, okay, how do I make myself better, but also help others in my own situation? And this, if we go part 2, this could be part 2, is what's going on in my life, and mixed head. So, to that degree, I think that self and helping others through my own fear of cameras, my own fear of being on social media as such, where I could actually go and help others and do what others have helped me with. And they're not role models because I have no idea who they are, but the individuals I've seen on social media and the quotes that they have, the music that they've given to the world has impacted me profoundly to, one, actually come on your show today, because it is a fear of mine, and it is to the point where I go, oh, do I really want to do that? Is it good for my situation that I'm currently in? Is it bad? Is it gonna make me feel bad after that we finish this to go, no, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't do this, text you back later and go, no, please don't publish that, please don't. I know it's not going to happen, and I'm not going to say that, but it is a thought process, and it is a fear that people are going to say negative thoughts. I don't care what people say to a certain degree, but because they have a right to their own opinions. But precisely what you said about that fear, and that's the screen that people have behind a computer screen, of, you would never say that in person. No, you probably wouldn't. And unfortunately, I'm a bit different, and I do say a lot of things I shouldn't have. But am I wrong for saying those things? Being blunt to people? I'm not trying to be rude to people. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm being upfront in my honesty. And if I disagree with you, I'm going to tell you I'm going to disagree with you, in person or behind a camera.
Why do you think that is?
Because of the life that I've lived and the understanding that there is two sides to every story, but mainly because you treat people the way you want to be treated. I want people, even if they disagree with me, to tell me face to face. I've been in certain situations, I don't get social cues myself. I'm very bad with social cues, and I say to people, just be blunt with me. If you want me to leave because I've overstepped the mark, then be blunt with me. I said, I don't care if you tell me to fuck off. I don't care if you tell me that you never want to see me again. But at least I know to what I've done wrong.
You know where you stand.
I know where I stand, but more importantly, what have I done wrong? If I make a mistake, tell me what I've done wrong, and then I can think, okay, don't get yourself into that situation again. Don't get me wrong, you can't dictate every single second of your life. And even if you try, you're not going to do it.
Yes.
So, having that moment where I have said to people, and I've been at the house, and the first thing I say to them is, if you want me to leave, just ask me. Don't feel like you have to be accommodating and ask me to stay, because I haven't got that social cue of it's half midnight and I can go on till 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, but you want to go to bed because you've got work at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Be blunt with me. Just say, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you another time.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, precisely. Well, yeah. Thought you might bring that up. Yeah, to me, it's very, if you don't get the social boundaries, and only thought pops in my head now, but the whole camera shy is that can be used against you in a court of law. It's not that I'm trying to say everything that's on camera is bad. I think there's a lot on camera that has been, whatever it's been used for, is very good and formal. There's law people that are out there teaching you about law through visual simulation versus textbooks. I don't read very well, I'm dyslexic, and if you said, oh, here's 1,000 pages of a law degree, please read it by the end of the year, brilliant, and then have a test on it, I'd get 0 out, 20% out of the 100%, because that wouldn't have been retained. That visual online where I can look at something and just do 15 minutes a day of parts of law, I'd probably get, I'm not going to get 100%, I'll be honest with that, I'd probably more get 60%.
You'd get significantly better.
But significantly better. But that also goes back to this whole, why we're doing this today, is actually you spend 10 minutes on camera and let people judge you for those 10 minutes versus let's sit here every week having debates about life, the universe and everything else. Of course you're going to get more comfortable. More
it's exposure.
Yeah, but also if you look at yourself of, hi, okay, end of this session, I read back on this and I look at our whole conversation, I will criticise, and I know it, I will criticise myself for what I've said and what tangents I went on and how I expressed myself, even though we can only live in the moment.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. It's the folly of human existence is we know better but choose not to do better. We know that we can't, as you said, we can't monitor every single moment, and as best as we try to, we're still going to make mistakes. We cannot avoid the inevitability or inevitable truth that you will make mistakes, things will go wrong. But as you say, you're still going to go home, and even knowing that, you're still going to look back and think, why did I say that? Or that wasn't what I was trying to say. I will do the same thing. It's just the way of the world with people. And
misinterpretation is a massive part of our day-to-day world, where, I mean, I can say, I hate you, or, mate, you're just being an absolute cunt.
Are we talking on the difference between saying something to one person in a positive manner and saying it to another in a offensive one?
Yeah, the misinterpretation, like, I think you made a very good point about an acquired taste. Certain individuals are an acquired taste. It just means they're not an absolute douchebag, but they don't work for you. And they're trying to be the nicest person possible towards everyone, but actually if it doesn't work for you, where's the issue? They're not a bad person. They just might be in that scenario that you know them in. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Let's abbreviate.
Yeah, we like that. But that misinterpretation for me is, what's the word? If you make a mistake, go back to the stealing thing, you steal something, you make a mistake, it's totally by accident, is, I didn't mean to do it, it was a mistake. That misinterpretation to, let's say, law enforcement, they go, well, you still stole it. I didn't mean to. Well, you still stole it. Yeah, I get that, and there should be consequences, but there's a variability of you are intentionally going into a shop and stealing a TV versus
the mother who's getting food to feed her starving family.
Precisely. Yeah. Like, I've seen this from South Africa. I've worked in townships as a volunteer football coach, and I was driving through a township in South Africa, one of the biggest in the world actually, and I was the only white person there. No, it's a tangent, but I had the fear of, why is everyone looking at me? And it was only because I've got a different skin colour. They weren't trying to be racist, they were not trying in the slightest. But as soon as after a couple of weeks, couple of months of going there every day, 3 o'clock without fail, and teaching them football, and actually supplying them with water bottles, footballs, goals, and it might not be a traditional goal that you see on the FA Cup, but little goals, little cones, little this. The respect that I had and another coach had, because we were using our money that we've earned to help others. But that misinterpretation of we're driving through a township, or what they're doing here, and that's all they're looking at. They're not looking at you in the sense of, oh, you're a bad person. They're looking at you, well, we don't often see white folk in this part of the neighbourhood. And it's not trying to be racist, it's not trying to be sexist or anything like that, but you see things in that respect, and I just want to help, because I've had a lot of male influences in my life that have done things for me without even lifting a finger. Just some comments that they've made, or a action that they've done is I couldn't afford to play tennis one day, and he said come along anyway. I was going through chemo and I needed some money to help with the alternative therapy that I was going through. I couldn't afford it myself. The tennis club raised £7,500 for me, and they didn't take a penny out of it. They used their free time to help me, and I want to do the same for other people. I've got no interest in, I don't care what your bank account is, I don't care what my bank account is, because actually all I want to do is, if someone's in trouble, I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or if you're other side of the country, I will do whatever I can to help. My partner might not like me for doing it, but
your heart's in the right place.
My heart's in the right place. And I had a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning from my mother, who's in India. It's only a month ago. I saw the phone call and I went, oh, phone her back. No answer. Okay, what's wrong? Everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. I was like, but you're phoning me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, and it was just that, if someone calls you, if someone calls you at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's not going to be good news.
Yes, yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's the majority of the time, it's just what our brains think. If I called you
abnormal.
Yeah. If I called you at 2 o'clock in the morning, you might think, oh, what's going on? Not, Mick's just being a drunken, disorderly idiot. Yeah. So, that fear of perception and that understanding of perception of others and that misinterpretation of others can have a massive influence on what you do today, tomorrow, and in the future.
I want to dive into just something you touched on there. We spend so much of our time placing an emphasis and an importance on material success. We want to provide money to people. We want to be successful on our own front. We want to improve our business. We want to, all of these sort of logistical, materialistic elements. This is where this entire industry of self-improvement and just general progression focuses on these elements almost invariably. How important is it for people to help the community, be kind to people, be generous, be the person that, as best as they can, even if their car doesn't allow it a great deal, will try to be kind and will take care of people?
Doesn't have to be big. Just someone crossing the street who you can see obviously that they're struggling, and the light goes green. Don't honk your horn. You can just hit. What rush are you in, really?
I think that's a really important point, actually, just there, of we live life 1,000 miles an hour, and that's why we get so irate with the most minute things. You know, the club-handed cashier who's going through someone's entire weekly shop and keeps dropping things or isn't doing it fast enough. That's not inherently annoying. You're finding it annoying because it's making you wait. What rush are you in? Even if you are in a rush, what rush are you in? What does it actually matter? Almost, you know, there are required caveats. Sometimes you really need to be somewhere, but almost invariably it is but a minor inconvenience, not a catastrophe.
Even, and you pointed earlier, and kind of goes back to this, is that man that I saw today on the way in. Yes, I don't think it was the case, but his wife is in labour. You don't know. You have no idea what is going on in their life. And again, I've worked with some, which society would say idiots, because they are. But no, they're not. They've made coffees, for example, in hospitality. They made coffees for 2 days, and you're getting frustrated because they're making mistakes. No, that's fine. And my philosophy is, and I said to her yesterday, actually, when I was working with her, is I've done that. I've done that.
Been there.
Yeah, I've done that mistake.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Just be wary of, and just slow down. There's only that one customer in front of you you're making coffee for. So the biggest thing is, and it goes to a very big tangent of your alternative milks, where a mistake was made when she put normal milk in, I said cow's milk, in something that should be oat milk. The woman was absolutely fine. It was personal preference. It wasn't an allergy. But if that was a consequences of that, then there's a bigger issue. But she was happy. She was just like, look, I understand she's new. I understand that mistakes are made, and just to let you know, it was the wrong milk. And I said, that's fine. Make it again. No problem. Should I have made that coffee myself to ensure that it is the right milk, or should I let her have a second try? Perception. Both are right. Both are equally good, because I know she's going to make it right the second time, because she has to stop the rest of the queue. But that minor inconvenience for everyone else, they go, well, she should make coffee. She's the barista. She should be able to make coffees every time, all throughout whatever speed I need her to do it as.
But do they though?
I think some people do.
I think some people do, but I would argue that
These are doctors in one of the world-renowned the world-renowned burns unit of the UK from World War II. And I understand these doctors need to go save lives. And that is exactly what they're doing on a day-to-day life. They are surgeons, they are doctors, they are nurses, they are even clinical staff that are just cleaning the surgery rooms, and the pre-rooms and all that. But my point of this whole thing is, even though I'm training her to do something, the life lesson that she might be learning has nothing to do with coffees.
No, it's a more subliminal message.
Yeah, it could just be, actually, he's a nice person who, even though I'm keeping making mistakes, is not getting frustrated with me. Because I make mistakes all the time. Like, I went to, stupid one, but I went to work on the wrong day. I had a day off and I went to work.
Yeah.
And it was just because my brain was constantly going, 8 o'clock in the morning, you get up, you go to work, you go this. And, yeah, autopilot. Precisely what you said. And it was just, like, really? It was just funny. And I told my boss, and I went, she was like, why are you here? I'm like,
thought I needed to be.
I meant to be here, I know.
Yeah.
No, you got a day off. And we had a laugh about it.
Yeah.
I actually stayed and did 2 hours of work just to help out because they were busy.
Yeah.
Didn't get paid for it? No. Should I? Maybe. But as we know, my boss is a acquired taste.
Certainly. I think, just bringing it home there, when it is the barista making the coffee that you know has only started today, we are almost, most of the time, quite capable of going, first day, don't worry, people make mistakes. But that very case, that very instance, can be attributed to any point of our lives. Any scenario could be that way. You could have the learner on the road. You could have the barista that doesn't make the coffee properly. You could have the person who is socially inept because they haven't been having conversations recently. We make mistakes, and we hold each other to be professionals at everything, and we're not. Most of us aren't professionals at anything. I would argue somewhat contentiously that even professionals aren't professionals. They're still
Professional at being yourself, I think, is the only thing you can be.
And even then, what does that mean?
That
include. I would argue, if you say the only person that can be you is you, which of course is true, then part of being the professional is the mistakes. It's the whole package.
To lighten the mood, you never pressed recording.
You bastard. I spent this entire time looking at that.
I know you did.
The brief moment of fear and panic there.
Could see.
Bastard.
Sorry. Just lighten the mood. Just relax, lighten the mood. So there is a whole element to being professional, and it goes down to the conversation of there are actions to the consequences, or consequences to your actions. Sorry. So for example, if I'm driving down the road, I go to the garage, I get my brakes done. You can see where this is going. I come out the garage, I run down an old lady because of my brake failure. Well, who's at fault?
Begs the question. Well,
technically, me to a certain degree, because I should have tested my brakes as I left, just to make sure they're working. The person who fitted them, or the garage itself.
Well, in fairness, this should be a point we'll dive into. You are given an assurance when you go out of that garage that your brakes are working, because that's what you've bought them in there for. So you would be, I would argue, it would be a 60-40 blame.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Apple or Samsung or any store and buy myself a charger. That charger doesn't work after a week.
Yes.
Who's to blame?
The company.
Yeah, but do you actually go back to them? Because the consequences of your charger not working is your phone dead.
Yeah.
Do you go to Apple and have a go at them and sue them for millions just because your charger doesn't work? Because there's no consequences to that. If I go out of the forecourt of the garage and my brakes don't work, there's massive consequences to that, or there could be a massive consequence. Same with kind of, do you go to another one, late for work? There's not a huge, in hospitality that I work in most case scenarios, there's not a huge consequence to that action of being 5-10 minutes late. Don't get me wrong, if you're 5-10 minutes late every single day for 20 years, yes, slightly bigger. And
you won't make 20 years.
Yeah. But you look at, again, the whole Trump topic, and if he was late for work one day, would it be a huge effect to the world? No.
I don't know. If that's a meeting with Mr. Putin, then yeah, probably.
Maybe. But yeah, it's you can't ever be, if you say be here at 12 o'clock on the dot, there is no chance in hell that you're going to be directly here at 12 o'clock. You'll be here early or late.
11:58.
Yeah, precisely. Or 12:05. There is no chance you're going to be there exactly on time, because there's too many factors influencing the outcome. Police cameras on the road, a donkey driving down the road who shouldn't be driving, or the traffic lights, or an accident. There's 100 things that could go wrong.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah, precisely. It's like, we've been sat here for an hour or so, and I'm constantly looking at the camera, even though I'm not physically looking at it. It's in the back of my mind.
Yeah, you know.
And
it's there.
Where I was going to with butterfly effects that you said is, everything I've said is now being recorded.
Yeah.
Everything I said is now being recorded. So the perceived effect of how that actually is going to be interpreted to others is a big one for me. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see what people say about it, and I would love to the negative comments to come out, because it gives me ammo to have the next conversation, the next chat, is to say, yes, the people said this, yes, they've got a right to speak their freedom of their mind, but to what degree does it actually affect my life, unless you let it affect your life?
See, this is a very contentious point, I find, I absolutely agree. I think if you put it down to the bare bones, you are the one who has the choice on what truly affects you, on what you take on board. But like an example I've used recently, like communism, it fails to bring in the human element. I'm allowed to say that on this podcast because I make the rules.
Do you?
Yes, I do. It fails to bring in the human element.
Yeah. I think, it fails to bring the human element, but what is... I'm only being controversial because I am a controversial individual. What's communism for you?
Do you want a definition of communism?
No? Your opinion?
It's sort of difficult to go about that without providing a definition. So
No. The definition is...
My understanding of communism is a system put in place where, irrespective of work or occupation, everyone gets the same. That being said, that money and that distribution comes from a precipice that is not the same. It is some men are more equal than others sort of political stance or ideology.
So, why I ask what's your opinion is very simple, is everyone's perspective of opinion is different. So everyone, if I asked you, and I asked myself if I could, and I asked someone else, we're all going to have a slightly different answer. So, when you say communism, you think of this bad thing. Not everyone. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good. There's this bad thing about communism. It's bad. It's dictatorship to a certain degree. Everyone has the same. Everyone's entitled to exactly the same, but you're not allowed to be above the person next to you. But who made that rule in the first place? Someone who then
exactly
put them above you.
This is the folly of communism.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's why communism doesn't work. Besides taking out the human aspect of...
But is freedom of speech going to work?
Does freedom of speech work?
Yeah.
When freedom of speech is actually freedom of speech, yes, it does work.
So
I think the misconception that we have here, though, is people don't understand the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of consequence. In my opinion, I was speaking to a good friend of mine about this. You cannot have freedom of speech without allowing everything that can be said to be said. The difference here is, if someone says something that is outrageous or offensive or hurtful, there should be a obligation to respond.
Offensive to who?
See, this is why I say this point. If someone says, let's put it into the layman terms that make it simple, we can all generally, besides maybe a depraved percentage, agree that Nazi ideology is an awful thing.
I disagree with that.
Well, you retract that statement.
No, I'm not gonna. No. I know the point, and my reasoning is very left wing. Sorry to interrupt. Is I dated a German for 7 years. My dad has dated a German for 12 years. The things that they get taught from school and their whole life is very different to what we do.
But that's maybe. I know from my understandings, the German teaching of that period of time is very different to ours. But that's a semantic point.
Yeah.
We are still for the sake of this point, we understand that this is a bad thing. So we could objectively look and go, right, you can say whatever you like, just don't say that.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue, when it comes to freedom of speech, that the minute you start imposing any law or any regulation as to what someone can say on any front, you then begin to open up the question for everything else that is said. Now, my argument here would be, if we put it on a scale of you've got horrendously offensive and what everyone deems to be offensive things, such as Nazism, on the left, and the benign insult of someone saying, you insert whatever trivial, oh, I can't believe you said that, that's so offensive comment on this side. Well, on an objective sense and a logical one, you can distinguish these two things. You can go,
course,
that is absolutely hateful and hurtful, this is trivial.
Yeah.
But who are you to distinguish that difference? I would argue, to a point, if someone is offended by something, irrespective of how you feel about it, that is offensive. And on that basis, why should you, as the person who it's not affecting, be the one who determines the value of that offence? If someone is offended by something that you deem to be offensive and someone else is offended by something you deem not to be offensive, who are you to distinguish the difference? And the point that I would make with that is, when you begin to say you can't say this, you can say that, you open up a whole new question
100%.
as to what can and can't be said. And it comes from a biased perspective. What happens if, just to make the point, a neo-Nazi is the one making the regulation? Well, they're not going to put Nazism as something you can't say because they're fine with that. Now, of course, we should hope that no one is in a position of power with those ideologies. But the point is to make it crude for the sake of the point. Rules are made by a person who has their own opinions and their own biases, and on that,
What do you think dogs are the happiest things?
what do you mean?
It goes to the Buddhist monk of a dog. One dog to the other doesn't say that I'm better than you. Yes, there's an alpha. Yes, I understand that. But on a day-to-day life, they're just content in the moment. There is no one telling them what to do and what they can say, can't say. Not that we understand, but they could be swearing all they like. But with a smile on their face, like yours, it's just the biggest smile. Yes, he barked at me as I walked in the door, but it was just this massive smile and happiness of
ugly Sulai binned face.
Yeah, precisely. It's hard, and there is a massive debate topic for anyone, and it's your opinion right now against my opinion. There's no right, there's no wrong. A point that I want to make is, I don't know if you edit and look back on these kind of conversations, but tone of voice, and it goes back to the point, tone of voice, and the only time that you and I have ever interrupted each other on this podcast was about that. So it's a heated topic.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And our volume of our tone went up, our pitch went higher, just because it's a topic that is controversial in today's society. There is no right, there is no wrong, and I don't mean that in the sense of Nazis are right and Nazis are wrong. But it's opinion. So just us here now, just a thought that I had was like, I've just interrupted you. Slightly rude, actually. You're not letting someone talk and then saying yourself and then talking again. But that is why I think debates and conversations and podcasts like this are so important. Because you're actually going, and again, tangents as well. Because that's nothing about this conversation, about my fear and thing, but actually, just by having that conversation, you are opening another fear of someone else, of going, actually, that's a sensitive subject for you, that's a sensitive subject to myself, so we will clash. That doesn't mean either of us are right or wrong. It's our opinion and our freedom of speech to be able to say those things. Might get slated online, but that I don't care about. It's my opinion. I'm not stating it as a fact. I'm not saying Germans are bad and English is the best thing in the world. No, not a chance. I've dated a German, and when going there, and a very interesting story about that is, I was at her grandparents' house, can't speak a word of German. Granddad pulled me to the side, showed me a brick on the wall, and I could get the sense that he hated me. And my partner at the time wasn't there. I'm looking around going, I need a translator here, I don't know what the hell he's saying. I finally found her. She came over. She said, I said, what's so significant about this brick? Well, this house got bombed by the British twice in World War II, and this is where he was living. And he doesn't like the British because of it. I said, well, nothing to do with it. But that is what he's lived through. And don't get me wrong, I would hate to be in a country in the 1940s to the present day, whatever it is, any time of year, day, night, whatever. But he's judged me for something that my great grandparents maybe or may have not done. But I have to respect that, because he has lived through 2 world wars. He's been part of 1 world war. And God forbid, if we went into World War now, that'd be an interesting topic in itself. But he also knew, because I didn't speak German, that he could say probably things that otherwise he wouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Because there is a language barrier.
There's a similar to social media, a relative anonymity.
Yeah. And if that was on camera, would he still say it?
Regardless.
Probably not. Well, maybe actually. Because he was born in an era that cameras and stuff didn't exist. Good morning to you too.
Just went off. That light over there. Don't worry.
It's the fear of, and I think any topic you can make it is a topic about a worm. I know it's a random one, but there is so much to say about something so small, and actually, as day to day, takes so insignificantly to our day to day life. But actually, what does worms do a hell of a lot for our life? The soil, the food.
The world would explode without worms.
Bruce, not exactly, but
No,
yes.
It would. No, it would.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it would. Because worms, so the mass of the soil would be so packed that it would be too hot. In a very crude, saying this very crude way. Basically, it would make the world too hot and it would explode. You need worms.
Yeah. So something that's as insignificant as worms and something I learned today.
Relatively insignificant.
Yeah. In the sense of, no, it's not going to explode tomorrow if we didn't have any worms. But over time, there's a consequence of it.
Next time you see a worm.
So next time I go fishing, I'm not using worms.
Go and put them in some soil and whatever. You should be the pioneer of climate change.
Yeah.
Or in a positive way.
Yeah. So we're actually here to talk about my fear, about the and the tangent that we go on, but the fear of me on camera, the fear that I have sitting here in this room with a mic next to me and a camera on me. But something that I'm sure you didn't adjust for, but what's your fear?
That's a good question.
So what you didn't plan for is, what's your fear? Because these chats about other people and their fears and their lives, what's yours?
I think my biggest fear is waking up one day in the future and feeling as though I didn't do what I should have done. I think I spend most of my time charged with a concern that I'm not doing enough. And as a result of that, I think my biggest fear would be to wake up one day and think that I didn't do what I set out to do, or I didn't at least try. I think an equal fear of mine would be to be recognised or remembered as a bad person. I spend my life, a lot of the time, feeling somewhat insufficient. I would say my worth is directly hinged on my output, and I find it quite easy to spin a negative narrative towards myself of, even when I'm doing the right thing, or even when I'm being kind, that there's some sort of malignant underpinning to that. I'm only being kind because there's something I can get out of it, or you might have done work today, but you should have done more. I find my biggest fear in this world would be to wake up one day and feel as though I had unrealised potential, both on a monetary success base and on a personal basis. I don't want to be remembered as someone who didn't at least try.
Yeah. I don't think. I do think about the trying is. They say just by getting out of bed and making your bed every single day will make you that one step closer to that positive outcome and that positive day.
I testify to that.
Well, it's your better mess.
No. My point is, I make my bed every day. And it's absolutely correct.
Oh, sorry, testifying that way, yeah. It's getting out of bed, going to work. Do I have a problem with, this is controversial, but do I have a problem with those who live off benefits, have no interest in going to work, just want to take money off the government that you and I work hard to pay for, actually, with our taxes? Yes, there are some people, and I've got a very close friend of mine who has Crohn's disease, has had a very difficult past and present, not just past, but she's in a very happy place, but she can't work. She's got a 5-year-old that doesn't speak, who's non-verbal, who struggles in himself, and it's controversial opinion for other people, of course, but has never spent a day in his life for up to 5 years old away from her. And when I say that, doesn't go to school, always at home, always spent time together, and you think to yourself, you should go to school. And I've said it to her. She goes, every time I try, the repercussions is I can't stop thinking that something might go wrong. I went, to a certain degree, that is your issue. It's not about your kid, but you saying, I can't stop thinking.
Yeah.
But it's legitimate to the point where if you have an individual who can't talk to other people, can't communicate, and hasn't learnt to communicate with others through non-verbal communication, well, is there an issue with that?
Yes, 100%.
Where's the issue?
The issue is that you're, not in a malignant way, but absolutely in a selfish way, you are robbing someone of the opportunity to embark on the journey of life because you're scared.
Yeah.
That person, this child, is non-verbal. That doesn't mean that he's incapable.
No, not incapable, no. I've got a boss who I used to work for, whose kid is in a wheelchair, non-verbal, but is the happiest little sausage in the world. Just because you see him. Yeah, it's different completely. He's non-verbal. He doesn't speak. And he's 11.
The thing I would argue with this, and I say this calls back to a running theme of this, of the nuances of life, is if someone is genuinely happy doing something that maybe if circumstances were different, or in fact certainly if circumstances were different, we would look and go, you need to be doing something, or you need to be looking to strive towards something, whatever that is. If someone is genuinely happy and is honestly happy, there's no part. See, I think this is where this can get a bit blurry. Some people say, yeah, I'm happy. Well, like, I assume you know about Ozempics. Everyone has claimed for many years now, or I shouldn't be crude, a certain demographic have claimed for many years now that there's nothing wrong with being overweight. There's nothing wrong with being fat. Don't worry about it. I'm perfectly happy as I am. And then all of a sudden, perfectly coinciding with the time in which you can be slim and fit with case in point, with a pill that provides you with the luxury in a short amount of time. You don't have to go through the difficulty of acquiring it yourself. All of a sudden, that goes out the window. We're no longer talking about, how many people now are still campaigning for the body positivity movement? Now, I would argue still probably plenty of people. I don't know my statistics on there. But I can guarantee that there are a lot of people now that all of a sudden have gone quiet on that point. Because now you can get what you want. And that shows in absolute totality that you weren't actually happy with your body positivity movement. It wasn't actually what you were saying. What you were saying is, I can't get what I want, so I'm going to teach myself to want what I can get.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I would say, yeah, exactly. I would say actually on a sort of using that as an example for the rest of the world, I think we can teach ourselves that where we are is okay, and just be blind to it. Don't get me wrong. many times where we are is okay, and we should be happy with where we are. But there are a lot of people that pretend to be happy with where they are. And to round that point out, I think if someone is saying that they're happy where they are because they can't face the fact that they're not happy, then something should be done about that. And I think some people, as I say, you can have two people that are in genuinely the exact same scenario, and one of them is happy and just they are blessed with the brain that is innately content, and other people are not. You know, I can stand to say that I'm very rarely content. I don't live.
Strive for more, strive for difference.
Yes, I struggle to live in the moment tremendously because I can't help but it's
Question.
go.
What about right now?
Yeah, I would say I'm there right now.
Yeah.
I would say
And it's you can't judge someone and say, and you said about yourself there, and maybe it's the fear of I can't be in the moment right now, and that's why I've asked you. What about now? This is what you love to do. This is what your passion is. And you said, yeah, no, actually, now you are never going to be every second of the day, every second of the year, every second of your lifetime, happy to be exactly where you're meant to be.
you can't be.
You can't be. And that's human nature. That is, when I say human nature, anything and everyone that's on this planet now. Dogs, they're not going to be in the exact place that they want to go. When you go to work and your dog's left at home, they don't want to be there. Yeah, precisely. And they might be content because that's what they can get. But I look at myself and people say, oh, Mick, you work too hard. You've got so many jobs. Like, you need to take some time for yourself. Actually, I quite enjoy the jobs that I do. I don't like sitting still. But that is just me. Yes, I should actually learn a little bit more to stop, think, reflect, move forward. Instead of just going constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I think that on you as well. I think this, as your podcast, is so different to what I would do. But I have had the thought in this couple of hours that we've been talking, oh, I like this thought. Because I know when we sat in the car a couple of days ago, and I said that I did a self-reflective study an autoethnographical study of myself and how I move forward in my life, in my career, in my professional and personal career, and reflected on the progress. And I really enjoyed that. I really thoroughly enjoyed doing a dissertation in my master's that was physical instead of sitting behind a computer writing 20,000 words. Not me in the slightest. That to me was so nice to actually have that moment that I could say to my lecturer, I want to do this. I'm a dissertation about, I want to do this. And them going, this is your dissertation. Do what you want to do. And we will do our best, because kind of what they said at the beginning was, we don't really know how to market because no one else has done this before. And I was like, well, that's not me problem, that's you problem. But now, and I've spoken to my dissertation advisor in the last week, even though I haven't spoken to her for a while, and she said, oh, someone else have done it, can they come to you and have a conversation? Because you've done it. I haven't got access to my dissertation, and I haven't got access to my video clips that I took of myself. Even though I didn't like it, I was sat in a room doing 1 hour at a time, because this is also in COVID times. I couldn't go into university. So I had to think outside the box of, yes, I could just sit behind my desk 7 hours a day writing an essay about this self-reflective study. But actually for me, to get my point across, I'm not an essay type of person. I want to physically interact. I want to show my expression of speech, my freedom of speech through actual words. But how do I do that without going out my comfort zone? I had to use cameras. I had to use microphones. But that was a part of my dissertation, was your limitations. What are your limitations? what have you come across in your study that you have struggled with? And I was like, actually, I struggle with this. I struggle with talking on camera. But it's a very big difference because that wasn't being published to the world. That was going straight to a dissertation on a USB, plug it into the computer, and they read it and then either delete it or they give it back to me. So I also knew that it was only two people. Someone who's known me for the last 5 years versus the world for forever, really, for as long as YouTube and whatnot is out there for. Don't get me wrong, you might get 10 likes, you might get 10 views, you might get 100 million. Actually, with anything you publish online, you don't know the response you're going to get. And I hope that even for me, and this is my philosophy in life, is I don't care. I send memes, sorry, tangent, but I get sent from my grandmother loads of memes of Snoopy and whatnot, and she sends them on WhatsApp, and I post them on my status. I only do that to show how much of an incredible woman she is, and to show my appreciation, because she lives in South Africa. I can't go hug her, I can't talk to her every day, but it shows my appreciation of, in the moment, of what I can do in that moment. And if that makes one person happy, that makes my day. And I've had people text me, love that little Snoopy, love that little comment from whatever, like that little quote, that made my day today, thank you. And I go back to them and said, that's why I do it. I don't care if it only hits one person, I don't actually care if it doesn't hit anyone. It's something that hits my grandma, of I'm just posting these to honour her while she's still alive, because that's not going to be forever. So if I can do that while she's alive, and I can kind of repost these things for her, then it makes me happy. It's only minor, it's only insignificant, but in the grand scheme of my relationship with my grandma and other people, it might make someone else happy, just like it makes me happy every time she sends them to me. 14 times a day gets a bit much sometimes, but still love it. Yeah.
So around what I have thought has been a particularly enjoyable conversation and a valuable one, what is one trait that you want to be remembered as having?
One trait to be remembered for having: non-judgmental, so never judge someone. I don't care if it's just never judge a book by its cover, never judge people no matter what they do.
And why is that important to you?
Because it kind of goes through the whole conversation we've had. To sum up, not knowing what people are going through, not knowing where they've come from, and also don't judge people, because you never actually know what influence they're going to have in your life. And I think every influence, negative or good, is a good one in the end, because you learn from it, which means it's good. So even if it's a bad thing, you learn from it, means it's positive. And if someone is the best thing that's ever happened to you, you can also learn from that and go, okay, actually I don't like that. So even though the best thing that's happened to you, they might say something, might do something that you kind of go, I don't agree with that, but I love that person. You're learning from it. So I think never judging a book by its cover, but also never judging people because of the endless circumstances that can happen, past, future and present. Sorry, past, present and future. Yeah, I think that's for me. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is to be remembered that I'm not going to judge you no matter what. And I'll always be here for you no matter what. Friend, foe or stranger. If I see someone struggling, I will help out as much as I can. And even if that is be late for work, the priority is, I see someone driving down the road who's broken down. If I can help them, I will. If I can just push their car, I will. I don't care for being late for work. And that also means that I'm accepting to take responsibility for my actions for being late for work. Saying, look, sorry I was late for work because someone's broken down, or someone flipped their car on the road, or actually I just gave a friend a lift to work because they had broken their ankle. If a boss turns to you and says you're fired or anything, clearly they're not the right person for you. But don't judge them because they're just protecting their own business. Yeah.
Mick, I may not say this often enough, so I shall put it into as kind terms as I can now, and it is nothing but the truth. I find you're someone who is a remarkably loyal and friendly and kind person who really does practice what they preach. I find that you are someone who incessantly puts other people in front of you and works as best as you can to put a positive influence into a world that doesn't always have that positive influence. I think equally well, I think you're someone who stands as a remarkable example of the fact that you don't have to take a negative scenario and deem it as such. You can take something that has happened, be it a difficult diagnosis or a turbulent time with people, whatever it is, and you can flip that to find some value and then pay that forth.
Yeah.
There is a reason as to why I call you my friend. And to round out this video, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your wisdom.
You for inviting me.
And let's go grab a coffee.
Yeah, and I think actually at the end of the day, I think I'm going to take a bit of influence from you actually.
I hope I've had something of value to say to you.
Without someone getting nicked from me in more ways than one, to be able to do something like this, to even influence other people, just the one person, the 10 people, the 100 people, because I think what you and I are going through now, in our own little worlds, thousands of other people are.
Yes, that's the point.
To help those other people, to me, even if it is someone just crossing the street, versus someone in Africa, Asia, America, wherever you want to do it, who has a similar scenario, and they want to help you, or for someone to just say, you're doing okay. You can be yourself and not have a negative thought for that. That's how I want to leave it.
I deem that a good place to leave this. I shall leave on one quote saying, a good friend of mine, someone called Steve, recently said to me that the world would run a lot smoother if we just helped each other out.
100%.
With that being said, take those headphones off. Let's go for a coffee. There we go.